Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Fresh Crits of Melbourne. We are Stage 3, the Mount Buller stage of the Tour of Mansfield 2022. I thought I would dig out and review some of this footage, seeing that the race, the 2023 edition, it is kicking off this weekend. There's no better time to look at what unfolded on Stage 3. So let me give you a bit of the situation of where we're at the moment. There's currently 3 guys up the road, whereby 2 of those riders has essentially got an opportunity, has a bit of a sniff to take away the green Sprinters jersey away from our teammate Elliott Smith. So I've got the sprint points up on the screen now. We've got 4 points Smithy, 3 points to Page, who's up the road right now, and I'm sitting on 2 points. So if Pagey stays away in this break, works together with the guys and wins the sprint, that basically pushes Elliott off the top step, and he has to settle in for second or even third on the Sprinters jersey. So he's our real chance of collecting a jersey. We're going to talk about Speedy in the rear cam in a moment. So now's that opportune time. I've got to get on the front. I've got to try to bridge across to this group, bring an Elliott with me so he can contest the sprint. We don't want Elliott sniffing the wind. We want him to keep his legs as fresh as possible. But the situation is that we were caught off guard letting this break get so far in front. We were actually caught boxed in at the back of the group with the other team members clogging up the road, not allowing us to get through. And because we're racing on open roads, we're not allowed to cross over the double lines. We've got to stay in our lane. We didn't really find a good opportunity to move up, and it was all too late by the time they managed to get a really decent gap up the road. So now, it's my responsibility to try to bridge across as fast as I can in order to close it down as much as possible. Right now, we've got Paul Speed, who's actually doing quite well on GC. So the perfect scenario with this is that I can bridge across, bring an Elliott over with me for him to, retain the green Sprinters jersey. I then meet Speedy up on Mount Buller and do whatever I can to try to close down attacks for him so he can, get on the podium for his GC contention. So we've got Speedy pulling a bit of a turn now. Elliott's in my wheel looking slightly nervous in the rear cam, wondering, are you guys actually able to bring this one back? They are a fair while up the road. Well, do not stress, Elliott Smith, because we have your best interests at heart. As Speedy flicks me the elbow there, and it is now my duty to be the hot glue gun in this team and stitch everything back together. So what we might do is we'll skip a little bit further forward where you actually don't witness my pull where I average about 480 watts for 10 minutes that has Team Jumbo Visma knocking on my door. So we'll pick it up from there. So I've been on the front for about 5 minutes and I'm starting to get a little bit fatigued, and it's this moment that Elliott wants to see an increase in pace, so our sprinter gets on the front, and by doing that, in the rear cam you see Speedy, our teammate, has just let the wheel go. And the whole peloton don't seem too fussed about that, pretty much because none of us are a real threat on GC, so they're more than happy to let us crack on, chase the sprint points, not clog up what's happening in GC contention, and let us get on with our business. So already you can see in the rear cam, the rest of the group has sat up where they'll be essentially looking to get on as much nutrition as possible, food and water, knowing full well that they have, in about 40 minutes time, got a brutal 50-minute climb of Mount Buller right in front of them. Meanwhile, for us, we're trying to get this breakaway reeled in as quick as possible. You can see here Elliott pushing a really, really fast tempo. We're 44 kilometers an hour. We want to get across to that break as quick as possible. Fortunately for us, we have distance on our side. That sprint point isn't for a little while, so you don't want to dilly-daddle too much. You just want to get across so you can recover as much as you can leading into that sprint point. It's now at this moment I get on this front and basically do the last bit of work to get Elliott across. It doesn't take too long, but it definitely felt like forever. We finally made it across, and my heart rate's up at 183 beats, which is in that upper threshold range. But that's not too bad because we're about 9 kilometers away from the sprint point. So that essentially gives me and Elliott, who's coming on my inside there, enough time to get your heart rate down, get your legs nice and fresh before we hit that sprint point. Between now and then, we're going to generally just pull nice, easy, clean turns, no stress. Everybody in this group knows what we're up to. So there's no real need to get on the attack, flex, or anything like that until we get a little bit closer to the sprint point. So before we skip ahead, why don't we just introduce the main people in this bunch so you know who we're going to be talking at. So let's pause it right about here. Check out my mad paint skills. Okay, so here we go. We got Elliott Smith on 4 points, as you saw before. Pagey there, right in front of me on 3 points. We've got Murray on my right-hand side, 1 point, and I'm sitting on 2 points. However, when you look at how the sprint breaks down, is whoever crosses the line, everybody is in contention, which makes things really interesting. So Elliott, myself, need to be really mindful about who's going to be crossing the next sprint point first. So in the perfect world, Smithy would get first and I would roll in for second and take all the points away from the rest of the boys. But it's not as easy as it sounds. So let's skip a little bit further forward and I'll take you guys right to the thick of the action. Stay tuned. Alrighty, we skipped ahead about 10 minutes and a couple of Ks forward. And on the left-hand side, you can see that little poster there, sprint point 500 meters away. So I'm just marking out Murray's wheel. Here we've got in the rear cam, Elliott and Pagey are both battling it out. Now, I back Smithy in a sprint. He has got a nice little kick on him. Pagey's more of a breaker race or a rider, so I kind of back him there to look after himself. For some reason, I get on the front here and decide to lead everyone out. Now, if you can explain to me what I was thinking, please pop something in the comments below because I still can't figure it out. I thought that Smithy was on my wheel, so I was basically keeping the pace high that he could sprint over the top, but it doesn't even look like he's in my wheel. It's only when I hear the rushing of Pagey coming back past me, I jump on the gas, spiking up to 1200 watts just to keep everything nice and close together. There, Smithy takes first, Pagey second, I third, so I take points away from Murray. But most importantly, my teammate takes the 3 points, which secures him the green Sprinters jersey. And that wraps it up for him. So now it's our responsibility to, in the perfect world, work as a bit of a satellite rider. Like what Van Aert did in the Tour de France to help Vingegaard take the win, is essentially begin the climb up Mount Buller and then try to help Speedy, who's doing quite well on GC, help with any sort of attacks. Now, that's what the plan was in theory. Let's skip a little bit further forward and see how that one actually plays out. So we skipped ahead and 10Ks later, me and Smithy are on the climb. And that's the climb there. You can see it's a pretty gradual sort of climb. It's about sub 50 minutes, I would say, with a length of about 16.8 Ks, average gradient of just under 6%. And you're gaining actually just under 1,000 meters of altitude. So in Victoria, it's your pretty stock standard 1 hour climb. There's a few like this. We're a pretty flat sort of state. And you can see in the rear cam, the peloton is hunting us down. And like I said earlier, the dream in this scenario is to go with the bunch and be able to support Speedy, who's our teammate, in any sort of attacks that go up the road so we can help bridge him across. Now, I'm doing 320 watts. My heart rate's at 178 at the upper end of my threshold. Things are not looking good for me here. And bang, the first attack goes and the rest of the group are able to stay with. You can see Speedy here coming past. He checks in. How'd you go? Did you get the sprint point? Yeah, we did, mate. And he basically dances on the pedals up the hill. You can see the entire peloton riding straight past us. And I'm thinking, where's everyone else? And I look behind me and I'm now the last wheel. This is absolutely danger zones because if you lose the last wheel here, if you're dangling off the back, it's very, very hard to stay with a peloton, especially when you're moving at 20 kilometers an hour. There's still a fairly significant draft benefit you're going to get from the wheel in front. So it's so important that you can stay in the wheels here. However, the legs wanted nothing to do with it. I don't know if it was general fatigue after all the sprint efforts before, the day's racing earlier, or nutrition. It could be a whole number of those things combined, but it's safe to say I'm in all sorts here. And I think our long-winded plans of being a satellite rider up the road are not meant to be. And you can see in the rear cam, the race connoisseur is very closely tracking the bunch. They're making sure that nobody crosses the double lines. If you do cross, he'll beep his horns. You get a warning if you do it again. I think you end up getting a time penalty, and if you do it once more, you get disqualified from the race. So it's just to keep everybody safe. But let's skip a little bit further ahead where everyone starts to crack and we go from there. It didn't take long riding with the group for little splits to start happening. You can see Smithy's gotten on the front and already there's been a gap has opened up. There's a lot of looking around from all these riders here saying who's going to shut this one. But the mind is willing, but the legs say no. And you can see it's those constant surgy sort of attacks is what breaks everybody down. And it's not normally a big surge happens and that they're going to sustain that for the rest of the ride. No, they put the surge in, they drop a few riders and they settle back into their pace. Remember, this is about a 40 to 50 minute climb depending on how quick you are. So it's more about throwing in little jabs here, left and right, in order to break apart the group. But that little jab has sent me over the edge. I'm absolutely cracking here. 183 beats. There goes the race connoisseur. I know it's all over now. So it's essentially time to sit up, enjoy the scenery, enjoy riding your bike, and call it a day for me. We've done everything we can. We got Smithy in the green jersey. He takes home maximum sprint points. And funnily enough, Speedy doesn't even need our help on GC. He stays with the group all the way to the tippy top, even the steep bit, and managed to secure a second place on GC. So huge congratulations to him. That's pretty much a wrap, ladies and gentlemen. I'm excited for racing this weekend. I hope I see some of you guys there. If you enjoy this sort of stuff, please like and subscribe. Send it to your friends. And whilst you're here, why don't you check out when World Tour Pro Jensen Plowright takes it up to Sydney for the Sydney Supercrit. Links up there. That's a wrap. Ciao.